Alright, here's the pen attached to the chain. This is the second part of the pen tutorial. Basically all I did is take one ring and put it around the clip, and then started my two links there, and then two, and went along with the Byzantine or birdcage pattern there. Other clips might have holes in them, or you could drill a hole, find whatever it takes to attach this to there. Go ahead and do that. The first one I showed you at the beginning of the other video, I just glued it to the pen. That looks kind of weird, so find a way to attach it without gluing it, but if the glue is the only way, then I guess that's alright. I still need a couple more inches because I want to be able to have this attached to the board and still be able to write freely without being restricted too much by that chain there. So I'm going to add a couple more inches. This might be long enough, but I'm just going to say 18 inches is what I'm going to require. So to do the base, basically all you need is a small piece of wood. You can make it square like the one that I saw there, or if you can imagine, let's say my last name is Byrom, so imagine using the scroll saw to cut out a giant B out of wood and then attaching this to that giant letter. So there's more than just squares that you could do this with. So use some creativity, think about things. If you do a square, then I would use a laser engraver, or the method that I show in another video, iron transferring color pictures to wood. So you could get a scrap piece of wood, iron transfer a color picture on there, and then attach this to that, or you could do a letter, or you could do a basic shape and then laser engrave. All sorts of things we could do to make this project unique to each student. I'm just going to make a square and then laser engrave it, just like you saw at the beginning of the first video. Alright, I decided to go ahead and make 6 of these because remember I had to make these other pens for the office, so decided to do some mass production. So I'm going to do all of these together. When you make these, a good dimension is 6 by 6, unless you're doing a big letter or something. Try to use scrap. If you can't find scrap the right size, let me know. I'll come help you find something. Also check with me before you use the scrap, because sometimes it might be something that you might not want to use. So check with me before you start, when you find a piece of wood. And if you have a hard time finding one, let me know, I'll help you out. So basically, to do a square one, the first thing you want to do is just take go to the router table and just router the outside edge. Remember that when you're using a router, you want to do the end grain first, because as the router comes out, it's going to want to peel off some of the wood, and then when you do the side grain, it'll hide that and cover it up, as long as you weren't going like super fast and just tore off a big huge chunk. So we'll go ahead and go show that process here. Okay, I'm going to just use the a round bit here, so just kind of round it over, and it will also put a little step in there as well. So whichever side you want to be the top, put that down. So if you like a certain grain pattern, put that side down, because that will be what's facing up in the end. As you're going through, there's this ball bearing right here. Remember that the ball bearing is going to ride against the wood. Sometimes as you're coming through here, the wood will move back out a little bit as it hits the ball bearing. Go ahead and let it do that. After you run past it, look at it, and if you notice that it didn't router the exact same all the way across, then just do it again. Make sure you're pushing down so that it doesn't lift up, and always go from right to left. make sure that the corners line up, everything looks good. If something looks weird on the corner, then it probably lifted up a little bit and you need to run it again. Okay, this is pretty easy, so all you have to do is get a piece of carpet and put your wood on top of that, and then do your sanding on top of that. Use a sander, make sure you get any burn marks from the saw off. You know, round it a little bit, get any sharp corners off of it so that it looks really good. Okay, now if you work on it for a long time and nothing's happening, that means the sandpaper is not rough enough and you need to get something rougher. Okay, I see too many people waste their time trying to use a really fine grit before it's ready. So make sure you use a rough grit to get rid of the major defects before going to a finer grit. Okay. Okay, so I've sanded it down so it's nice and smooth now. Make sure you don't feel any lines or grooves in it, both sides, so it's nice and neat. I like to sand the corners down slightly just so it's kind of a little bit softer to the feel. Sometimes I even go to the point of sanding this down so much that this corner up here on the step disappears completely and just kind of blends in. I'm not going to do that this time though. But it does give it kind of a really nice soft look to it if you do that. Okay, the next step is to decorate this, because sometimes you might want to put the pen in a different place depending on what you put on there. So I'm going to put it in the laser engraver and put the image on it really quick. Okay, here it is, finished. This is the school logo. It's kind of old, but I like the look of it. We'll put the pen holder right here. I got these from Iasco, but I think they discontinued it. Another place you could find that is from Delvey's Plastics. It's in Salt Lake here. I haven't used theirs, but they should be pretty much the same as these. I saw somebody else that had them, so and they look pretty much identical. Should go right here, and so I'll drill a hole right there. It comes with a screw like this. Sometimes the screw is too long and we need to trim it down. That's pretty easy to do. To find out what drill bit to use a gauge here and just find the hole that it slips into, and as soon as you find that hole, get that drill bit. This is 9/64, and I have a drill bit 9/64. Make sure they both fit the same hole, and that should be the right one to use. Make sure you're drilling in a vise or on top of scrap wood. Don't drill holes into the table. So I'm just going to go right here. Okay, now that hole is the right size for the shaft of the screw, but what's going to happen on the bottom is that screw is not going to sit flush. It's going to pop out the bottom and it won't sit on the table flat, so we got to do what we call a countersink. If you look at the head of the screw, it countersinks in. It kind of goes at an angle, and I have this drill bit here. Has the same kind of angle on it, so we'll use that. Alright, because I'm not going to be drilling all the way through, I can do this on the table. You just want to go just a little bit, just enough for the screw to sit flat in there. Test it. If it's not enough, then pop it out and do it a little bit more. Alright, now it's sitting down beneath the wood so we won't have any problems. And it's sticking up. Now if it sticks too far up, because these threads only go so far, if it sticks too far up, then you might need to trim some of that off. And just screw that on there. And voila, we're good to go. Okay, so this rotates and does all sorts of stuff. And I need a screwdriver to help tighten it the rest of the way. But we're going to have a problem here because this was not designed for this type of pen. And this barely even fits in there, and that's not going to work. So we're going to have to reshape this. And the easiest way to do that is with a heat gun. So here's a heat gun. I got this one at Harbor Freight. Pretty cheap, but it works. So basically a heat gun is a hair dryer on steroids. So it gets pretty hot. You don't have to use it. This one has two settings. We can use the low setting because we just want to heat it up just enough to make it soft, and then we're gonna shove the pen down in there and reform the plastic so that it fits the pen perfectly. Don't get it too hot or it'll deform too much. And not enough. There we go. And now we got a holder that'll fit my pen. Okay. Still one more step left to do besides the attaching of the chain. That would be finishing. So I'm going to take this back off and put a few coats of lacquer on it so it's nice and shiny. Okay, so here is the finished piece. Put a nice clear coat on there so now it's all shiny. Finished my chain. It's now 18 inches long, and that's going to attach down here on the front, or you could attach it to the side, whatever you think looks best. The way to do that is to just drill a starter hole there so the screw that you're using doesn't split the wood. Birch is really hard. You don't want to go directly into it with the screw all by itself. You gotta pre-drill it. So I'm just going however deep the screw is. So I'll just go in right there. Then I'll just put that in there. Hopefully that'll fit. If it doesn't fit, then I'm going to find a different way of doing that. Yep, I think that'll work. You might have to spring open those rings a little bit. Now I'll just screw it on there. It's kind of smashing the weave there, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to take it out. I'm going to add 2 more rings so it has a little more play there, and then I'll attach it again. Okay, I added 2 more rings. As you can see, it gave it a little bit more room. These next 2 are still getting kind of smashed up against the wood. If I would have drilled that hole up a little bit more, maybe it would have allowed more clearance. And maybe there's some other things we can think of doing. This is the first time I've done the chainmail part of this project, so this seems to work okay. But if you can figure out a better way of doing this, then go for it. But as for this project, that's pretty much done. Just for information purposes, here's the parallel weave that I tried last night. It actually goes pretty easy. It's kind of a cool one because it has this ring right here, that large one. It doesn't go through any. It's what they call a captive ring. It goes around those small ones, but it doesn't go through the hole of any of the other rings. So it's just kind of floating in there. Really cool weave. It's not as flexible as this one is, because this one you can like really make it all pile up neatly. This one's going to be more of a stiff chain, but it's still flexible enough that it would work as well. So there's another option. I'll be working on some others as well. Refer to the my chainmail video for more information on where to get the rings and how to learn how to do the chainmail itself. I kind of expect you to kind of do this on your own. All the other pens that I'm going to make are going to use this stuff here, which you can buy to put together. If you don't want to do chainmail, you can just buy these instead.